Hello, happy Tuesday, everybody. Hopefully, you're able to get outside and enjoy some of that beautiful sunshine that we have today. It's time to read chapter 11. And before we do that, let's stop and think what happened yesterday in chapter 10. When we left off, the Earl of Glamford had been told by Mountjoy that his daughter Juliana was dancing at the big party in the third class steerage deck. And the Earl went to Lieutenant Lightoller and asked him to get her. And when the lieutenant went to retrieve Juliana, he saw that Patty was dancing with her. So now we know he's going to go after Patty, the stowaway. So chapter 11, RMS Titanic, Saturday, April 13th, 1912, 10:25 p.m. Patty Burns was remembering what it was like to be happy. It was the speed that made it work, he decided, as if his constant motion could unwind all the bad luck that had befallen him. The poverty of his family, the brutality of his stepfather, the squalor of his street life in Belfast, the murder of his best friend by the Gilhooleys, and his life as a hunted animal aboard the Titanic. None of it could touch him as long as he kept moving. He danced on winged feet, twirling the girls as the steerage passengers thronged around, stamping their boots and clapping. Even Alfie, whose face was pinched and anxious, was bobbing his head in time with the music. The stomping rhythm broke first. The crowd began to struggle and then part. Second Officer Lightoller bowled through the dancers, flanked by two able seamen. Flanked means that there's one on either side. Sophie spotted them first. "Patty, run!" Before Patty could react, Lightoller's fist locked onto his wrist. Struggle though he might, Patty could not break the steel grip. Juliana did the only thing she could think of. With the cry of, "I feel faint," she threw herself forward, trusting the second officer's chivalry. Now, chivalry means like politeness towards women. He did not fail her. He released Patty and caught her sagging form just before she hit the deck. When he looked back, Patty was gone. So Juliana pretended to faint so that Lightoller would let go of Patty to help her. After that, the chaos was complete. The revelers stood back to open an escape route for Patty, but closed ranks for the second officer and his men, blocking them at every turn. No one physically interfered with them, but the third-class passengers would not make way, no matter how loudly Lightoller bellowed. Patty scrambled out of the well deck via a steep companionway and looked around. From the rail, a heavy line stretched overhead, one of the guy wires anchoring the aftermast. Breathing a silent prayer, he shinnied up the taut rope and dropped down to the second-class promenade, well behind the spectators watching the party below. He dashed around the corner, leaped the gate, and slipped into the side entrance of the Veranda Cafe. So I can make a conclusion here, draw a conclusion here. So I would conclude, based on what's in the text, right, that Patty was able to climb up the rope and jump down and shimmy from here and go there. And knowing that you have to be pretty athletic to do those things, that's my background information, I could draw a conclusion that Patty is a very athletic person. He's quick and has good balance and all those things. It was one of the most stunning rooms on the ship, featuring ivy-covered black lattice on the walls and immaculate white wicker furniture. The cafe was deserted except for a lone server collecting dirty dishes. He stared at the newcomer in dirty coveralls. "You can't be in here." "They sent me to help clean up," Patty panted. "What, dressed like that?" Patty heard footsteps outside the door and knew he had no time to argue with the waiter. "I'm supposed to help." He grabbed the tray from the bewildered man, tipped it up, and flipped the contents toward the door. His timing could not have been more perfect. As Lightoller entered, he was pelted with drinks, cold coffee, and half-finished desserts. Glassware and ashtrays shattered at his feet. Patty bolted out of the cafe, leaving a trail of overturned tables in his wake. But it wouldn't slow down the second officer much. But he hoped it would give him enough of a cushion to disappear. He sprinted along the passageway, looking left and right for a ladder or stair, anything that would get him off a deck. There it was, a steep steward's ramp. He ran for it, disappearing just as Lightoller burst from the cafe. Seeing no sign of his quarry, the second officer reached for the communication telephone on the bulkhead. Patty's ramp bypassed B deck and went directly to C. As he ran down the passageway, he kicked out of his coveralls and left them on the carpet behind him. Let them think he was on sea. Let them search every compartment and storeroom. That ought to keep them busy for a while. He would be nowhere near there. He took the stairs to E deck and wheeled onto Scotland Road. Following this route, he could be all the way forward in the bow of the ship in minutes, far from Lighttoller's last sighting of him. He slowed down to a brisk walk. Scotland Road wasn't as busy now as it was during the day, but there were certainly crew about, and too much obvious haste would attract their attention. So he's trying to say if he seems like he's running away from something, people will notice him more. He received a few curious glances and wondered whether scuttling the coveralls might have been a mistake. He was in the shirt and breeches of a third-class boy again, and that wasn't the best costume for the working parts of the ship. But he never made it to the bow, or anywhere near it. After perhaps 50 yards, he spied a sailor talking on one of the bulkhead telephones. More important, that sailor spied him. If the thought had occurred to him a few seconds later, he probably would have been caught. He's speaking to the bridge. They've got a ship-wide alert for me. He fled, leaping the rail of an access ladder and climbing down out of view. As he descended, the very ship around him seemed to fade out. He was suspended in darkness, clinging to the rungs in what seemed to be an endless vertical passage. Noises swelled, a mechanical thrum punctuated by a vibration he could feel in his gut. Now he knew what lay below him. He had found the way down to the ship's vast reciprocating engines. As his eyes adjusted to the low light, he could make out a system of heavy piping, which brought in the steam that turned huge armatures. They looked otherworldly and alive, like the arms of giants performing a never-ending ritual. At last he saw the deck and stepped off onto something solid. With a sinking heart, Patty spotted the engineer and recognized the device at his ear, a telephone receiver. Even here, in the bowels of the ship, Lightoller had found him. In growing panic, Patty understood that the game had changed. He was quick enough and smart enough to avoid a single officer aboard this floating city. But thanks to the Titanic's communication phones, he was now the prey of more than 900 crew members, not just one. With his heart thumping in his chest, he ran straight into the heart of all that massive machinery, hoping to disappear amidst the forest of supports that held the engine in place. Over his shoulder, he caught sight of a mammoth armature plunging toward him. In a blind panic, he flung himself to the deck. He closed his eyes, waiting to be squashed like a bug by tons of steel. So now he's about to get crushed by one of the big parts of the engine that's moving up and down. How will he get away this time? We'll see tomorrow. Thanks for listening.